Welcome to West Country Wanderings and welcome to a brand new series. This is episode 1, looking at the Geo Park Way. Remember last time we did the Severn Way from right in the heart of mid-Wales, from Mount Plymouth, following it all the way down to the heart of the city of Bristol. Well, this time, new series, the Geo Park Way, we're going to be uncovering 700 million years of geological history. I'm currently here just outside of the West Country Wanderings region. We are in the West Midlands. We're actually in the county of Shropshire. I'm in the beautiful town of Bridgnorth. I'm at the upper part of the town because there's upper town and lower town. So we're at upper town here. At St Lawrence Close, at St Lawrence Church, which actually was started to be built in the 13th century. Later additions in 1840s and 1870s. Sadly, now it's no longer used here in the town, but it is conserved using Preservation Trust that currently cares for it here, St Lawrence Close. There are some steps behind me which will take me down to Lower Town. And that's where we're going to be starting our adventures today. We're going to be heading down to a village which you'll be familiar with on the channel if you regularly watch the channel, and that is of Highley, which sits right on the Severn, as we do here as well. But we're not following the route that we did last time, literally following the River Severn. We're striking up into the hills. So rather than following the river this time like we did before the Severn Way, we'll be actually following a range of a series of hills like the Aberley Hills, the Malvern Hills, and finishing up at May Hill and then heading into the city of Gloucester. There'll be lots of interesting things to see along the way, not least of which lots of lakes, woodlands, forest, parkland, coalfields, much more of interest. So I hope you can join me here on the first part of the Geo Park Way as we head to the Shropshire village of Highley. So this behind me here is North Gate, part of the town's walls, which would have one time completely encircled the town, which is on a high position over the River Severn, as we saw last time. The other thing to note here is what it was built with, and that is the red sandstone, some 250 million years old, and it's dyed red because of the iron oxide. In fact, if you examine sandstone, you'll see it's made up of literally sand, quartz crystals, because it was formerly part of the bed of sand dunes when this land was very different indeed. Now, one of the many things I love about Bridgnorth, these wonderful little alleyways which crisscross both the upper and lower town. The one on the opposite side of the road that heads through Northgate is called the Moat, and I think that's because it leads on towards the direction of the castle, and you have that connection between upper and lower using the funicular railway, which is, I understand, running again. Last time I was here, it wasn't running. But we're going to head now down to Lower Town to start our walk here on the Geo Park Way, making our way eventually to the city of Gloucester, some 107 miles south of the town here. So this lane here is indeed called the Moat. I'm going to be heading that way shortly down to meet up with the River Severn again. Just tell you about the logistics today. I've actually driven here. I could have caught the train, but it would have meant I would have had a later start. I'm going to walk to Highley, and then I'm going to catch the bus back from Highley to return back here to Bridgnorth to my car again. I think in future ones though, I'll probably be catching the train and using buses as well. The last bus I think is at 6:30, so we've got plenty of time to enjoy our walk along the Geo Park Way here in Shropshire. Now, as a good illustration about the geography and the geology of Bridgnorth, you couldn't get a better example than this here. This is Lavington's Hole. I'm here at Bridgnorth Lower Town, and in the Civil War, the town was loyal to the king. They were royalists supporting Charles I. But the parliamentarians wanted to seize this strategic town here in the Severn Valley. And they thought a good way of doing that, knowing that the royalists had retreated to the castle just up there next to the church, not the one I showed at the beginning, but the other church here at Bridgnorth, Higher Town, they decided to dig. With pickaxe and shovel, they hacked away at this soft red sandstone here to try and dig a tunnel right up there through the sandstone cliffs up to the castle. Now, legend has it there are lots of tunnels in this area, but no tunnel was ever found that had been completed from here at Lower Town right up through the sandstone cliff. But yeah, it's amazing to see this. It's called Lavington's Hole, after, I think it was General Lavington. I'll put a little bit more detail about him in the usual way below. But yes, it's an amazing and spectacular site here in Bridgnorth, and testament to the town's geology as we'll continue heading south along the Geo Park Way to the city of Gloucester. Now, another indication of just how soft this red sandstone here is in Bridgnorth is you can see the number of people that they've carved their initials and names in this. But it still blows my mind to think that this was 290 million years and it was former sand dunes in a desert. Yes, it's amazing. We saw some other caves as we came into Bridgnorth following the Severn Way last time. And further along here, there's some more caves, and people have used these for homes over hundreds of years. Hermitages, well, literally hermits lived in them, none now, but there are many, many examples dotted along the Severn Valley. Anyway, we're going to continue our route now, heading over the bridge over Sabrina. Yes, once more. I told you we'd see Sabrina again, didn't we? We'll follow Sabrina for a little while, this time on the opposite way to what we followed the River Severn heading south of Bridgnorth when we went to Highley previously. And we're going to go this time to a village called Quatford. Now, Quatford has a significance here in Bridgnorth because the name Bridgnorth comes from, literally, it was the bridge north. There was a bridge originally at Quatford, and then they built another one a couple of miles north, hence the name Bridgnorth, literally. Yes, I love that. Anyway, let's go over the bridge and over Sabrina again and following it down the opposite side before we strike up into the Shropshire Hills. Now, I told you we'd see Sabrina again. We last saw Sabrina in the last episode of the Severn Way, last month in August, when I say goodbye to Sabrina at Severn Beach, when effectively she goes into the sea. So back we are again following Sabrina, just for a little bit today though. We're crossing over that bridge shortly. Now, if you're interested in my railway series, definitely this is not a railway series one today though, but there is a little bit of a connection both to a railway series video sort of, and the county of Cornwall. There was a gentleman called Richard Trevithick from the town of Camborne in Cornwall, and he invented the first passenger locomotive to pull passengers, and it was called the Catch Me Who Can. What's that got to do with Bridgnorth? Well, a lot, because that locomotive was built right here, very close to where I currently stand at a foundry near Lavington's Hole here in Bridgnorth. I've forgotten the name of the foundry company that made it, but there are a couple of statues of the Catch Me Who Can dotted around here in the town of Bridgnorth, which is a nice connection between railways and Cornwall as we follow a little bit of the River Severn. Anyway, let's get over that bridge and head down to Highley. So we're going to be heading out of Bridgnorth shortly. Back down that way is Bridgnorth Bypass Bridge, a newer bridge of the two. And also we went past the Bylot, which is an island in the River Severn, which is owned by, I think it's a local rowing club. So there is a bridge across it, but it is chained off, so you can't go on it. Anyway, head down that way towards the village of Quatford. Good to see a few people out this morning enjoying the river. Some anglers back there, lots of dog walkers going through that park, which I think is called Well Meadow. And it's actually part of something, excuse the tree, known as the bee route. Not in as in bee road, but bee route as in bees. Yes, like a nature motorway to connect different habitats. Now I've just realised that I haven't actually said the total length of the miles for today's walk. It's around about 16.5 kilometres, so insert map now so you can see today's route. We'll be heading after Quatford to another village called Highley, which has an interest going back to medieval times. Hopefully we'll be able to see that, more about that a bit. And then we'll be going over the footbridge in the Severn Valley Country Park, making our way again back to Highley, and then it's bus back to my car in Bridgnorth. That's a beautiful calm river here this morning. And so we've just gone through the caravan park there, so that was good to see. And we'll continue our walk here along the Geo Park Way in Shropshire. Oh, incidentally, in case you're wondering, yes, we're not in West Country Wandering Region at the moment, but we will be next time, because like we did in the Severn Way, early part of next route we'll be heading near Highley, but on the opposite side again. And then we'll go into Worcestershire and back into familiar West Country Wanderings territory. But I thought, again, for completeness sake, rather than starting at the border of Worcestershire, I'd do the whole thing, because it makes more sense doing it that way. So yes, this is the whole 107 miles. The train you can hear clattering over there, in fact, is a train on the Severn Valley Railway, which you'll be familiar with from my railway series, and I'm sure we'll be back there again at some future point. Now, what I don't know about doing the Geo Park Way is how long it's going to take me, very much like the Severn Way. A lot of it, of course, is dependent on the weather, most significantly rain. And talking about rain, there is rain forecast later this afternoon, so I left home early. I left home 5 o'clock, just before 5 o'clock this morning. I got to Bridgnorth at 6:30 to start filming, and we're here, so it gave me plenty of time to film around Bridgnorth before it got busy. But I want to ideally get to the final destination of Highley before 3 o'clock, which is when the rain's supposed to start. Just tucked in behind, I think there's a dock leaf, I'm not sure, on this stile here is the Geo Park Way marker. That's the first marker I've seen since, well, I haven't seen anything in Bridgnorth actually at all, but there probably was someone on the finger post there. But H&W Earth Heritage Trust, H&W, maybe Hereford and Worcester probably, but obviously we're not in Herefordshire or Worcestershire yet, but we will be later on in this new series here. Walking for Life, I've not seen that one before, so that's new. So we're going to go through this gate and head on walking to Quatford. Geo Parkway has an excellent website which I can't recommend highly enough, and I'll put a link to the Geo Park Way website in the description of today's video if you want to have a look at that. It's got lots of tabs on it, gives you loads of information about all the towns and villages on the route and all of the geological features that we'll see along the way down to Gloucester. I only know of 2 of them actually, which I've kind of personally seen before, apart from the one we saw back there in Bridgnorth, but apparently there are many others, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that, because I do like a little bit of geology, as my description of the videos of my channel says. There's also a guidebook which you can purchase. Again, I'll put a link to that. And you can also download a free PDF which gives you a guide to the trail, and it gives you lots of hints and tips about travel opportunities and places to stay, places to eat along the route, that sort of thing, which I think was only updated probably about a year ago, so I think it's pretty accurate still. So why not check that out? It's well worth looking at. I can't remember the organisation that kind of looks after the whole thing. Is it that Earth Trust? I'm not sure, but they do have events that go on as well. I think some of them take a place. There's a place at Church Stretton, isn't there, in Shropshire Hills. I think a couple of things happen there, but at various other places they do walks and tour guides, and again I'll put a link to that about the Geo Park Way in the description of today's video. Just at the back of the houses on there, you can see a row of terrace of white houses. You can see a substantial cliff, red sandstone cliff of course, and it was near here I think that Quatford had its castle, but it's now sadly, well, I think you can see part of it. It's a little bit off our route today to the village itself, but it was kind of over the back there in between those 2 trees behind the cottages. So I'm now arrived at St Mary Magdalene Quatford, where I'm just going to have a bit of a rest, consecrated in 1086. So it looks like there's a bit of history here. Before we do that though, another geological feature. This bit here was the old road. You can probably hear it thundering that way. That's the road across to and down to Kidderminster. So yeah, you've got some interesting features here. Now there's a technical name for them which has just completely gone out of my head, but this banding here, this banding effect, is where you have two types of sand dunes. One would have been from marine animals and one non-marine. I'm not sure which is which, but you can see the two different bands. Here you have the darker coloration, which is harder wearing, and the lighter one there, which is obviously not so well. You can just see my finger, it's actually just pulling away there as my finger rubs off it, that layer there, and this one's much harder. I can't remember, I think this one here is from the marine animals, and this here would have been from the sand quartz, and again that was from when all of this was completely underwater. Isn't geology amazing? So we'll just pan back now, and I'll see you in a second. So here I am in the churchyard at Quartzford. A couple of interesting things here, not least of which where the road used to be out there, with those dune bedding from where the sand dunes were when this used to be a desert 299 million years ago. In fact, the church here was built from that same red sandstone. Over on the corner of the churchyard here, there's a fence, and next to that is a gate with a sign, and that sign says beware. Beyond this point you may encounter masonry bees. I've never heard of masonry bees. I wonder if they're the ones that use the bee roads where we saw that sign as we headed out of Bridgnorth earlier. But I'm guessing they must burrow into the red sandstone using their proboscis. In case you're wondering about the mileage on this route, remember I said it's 107 miles in total. You're probably thinking, well, Bridgnorth to Gloucester is only probably 60 miles at most. Well, yes, you're right, but the Geo Park Way does definitely not go in a straight line, as in the case now, as we're going to head north to a hillier section before we go on to our next village, which will be Highley. just warmed the temperature up. No, that's not literally with heat, but the colour temperature, it's very, very heavy grey lead and skies today. Just looking back at the footage, it's looking a little bit, well, bluish tinge, because it's so the Kelvins were too high, if you know what that means for photography. So I've just reduced the Kelvin, so hopefully the picture will look a little bit more warmer here on this very overcast day in the middle of September. We're making our way into the woodland now. So I told you this place, this walk, long distance walk, has got lots of variety on it, and we'll be shortly heading into the country park of the Dudmaston Estate Country Park House, which belongs to the National Trust now, but I think the family still may own it, still maintained by them, so you can visit it. Unfortunately I won't have time to visit the house, but we will be skirting through part of the parkland and promised some lakes along the way. Just about to go into that woodland any minute now. So yeah, so lots of variety here as we make our way to our next port of call. Certainly heading dark in here now. Now this part here I think is called Comer Wood as we head down to the Lakes Dunstan Park, and originally I feel that this would have been part of the original wire forest, because although the designated area is now kind of west of the town of Bewdley and the Severn Valley there, which we will come to in part 2 when we make our way to Bewdley, but by a very different route to the Severn Way route. The wire forest actually originally extended from Worcester quite a bit further to the south. How many miles is that to the south of me? 30-40 miles south of where I currently am, right across up to just to Bridgnorth, where we started our walk today. But the land will change as well, and so will the rocks, because we'll be going into the Carboniferous period, and the Carboniferous period, clue is in the name, led on to coal, and that coal of course mined. It was mined extensively when we get to our next village. Now back there is a stunningly beautiful little cottage, it's like a hideaway. I'm not sure if it's owned by the National Trust as part of the estate, and maybe it's one of the people that work on the park that live there, or whether it's a holiday net. It's called Heath Cottage. There's picnic tables in the garden there, and it's surrounded by these beautiful deciduous trees, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. I didn't want to film next to it in case there was somebody inside it, but I just took a couple of photographs, put those in now, so you can enjoy those. So come to this really lovely part of the park, National Trust Park, Dudmaston. This is one of 3 pools, I believe. This one is called a Bryn Pool. It's only slightly spoiled because of the busy road just on the opposite edge of it there. Just before I pressed record on the camera, 3 cormorants took off from the lake, and also there was a grebe. Of course, now I've done this, they've all disappeared. That's typical, isn't it? But anyway, it's a most delightful and beautiful spot here in this parkland here, which I'm really, really enjoying. Just word of warning though, although the route is pretty well signposted so far with the Geo Park markers, as it goes through the National Trust land here, it does cross over lots and lots of other trails which are marked, and on some of those crossing points the Geo Park markers are missing, so you still need to use a map and compass or your OS map app on your phone. It's essential really to find your way through, to unpick it across and through all those other trails in this beautiful parkland here in Shropshire. Now it's always good to savour nature and trees and all of that goodness that's around us, which I'm really doing here in Dudmaston Park. I don't know when the next part of the Geo Park walk will arrive, so if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel West Country Wanderings and then hit the bell. Then YouTube will tell you when the next part of this arrives. I do lots of different videos across lots of different topics across the wider West Country, and I appreciate that some of those videos won't appeal to all of my audience and some videos will appeal to others, if you see what I mean. So if you're not interested in canals and railways and that sort of thing, or indeed photography, and only interested in my walking ones, then hit the bell, then you'll be alerted to when the next walking one arrives on the channel, as I hope to film the next part of the Geo Park Way in October. I do also hope to do another Cotswold Way soon. It'll either be at the end of September or going into October, again, we are weather dependent on that. And if you are not aware, I do run a Facebook group also called West Country Wanderings, where you can share your own photographs and video clips of anywhere across the entire West Country Wanderings region, from the tip of Land's End right up to just south of the city of Birmingham and everywhere west of the city of Oxford. So I'm not going to list all the counties again, but you'll see it on the map. We aren't currently in the region today, but as I say, I wanted to do this bit for completion, to do the whole of the Geo Park Way. But we will be back into familiar West Country Wanderings territory in the next episode. Anyway, I think you'll agree that you won't mind this little excursion out of it to enjoy the sights and savours here along the route. Now, if you remember earlier, I sat on that tree branch and I was next to Brim Pool. Well, we have two more pools here. That one under there has a really strange name. It's called Seggy Pool. And this one in this direction over here is called War Pool. Anyway, we're going to head along the Geo Park Way this way to our next village, which I thought was Highley. I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation. It probably is wrong, but Highley we'll be going to. But before we get to that village, we've got another village to go to, and that is the village of Hampton Load. And you're probably thinking that's familiar for the Severn Way. Well, in fact, we kind of went to Hampton Load, but kind of didn't. Nice stream there and some lovely bit of autumnal colours here as well. We kind of didn't because we were on the opposite side of the river, and there is no bridge between Hampton, which is where the Severn Valley railway station is, and Hampton Load, which is what we're going to see. There used to be a ferry. I'll tell you some more about that when we get there. Well, what a delightful spot this is. This is called the Rustic Bridge, which went under restoration by the National Trust just a couple of years ago. We're still here in the huge and vast Dunmanston estate here in the National Trust here in Shropshire. I'm really enjoying this walk. It's got so much variety with it, with lots of streams. I did take a wrong turn again. You know, I showed you that cattle grid, but I took another wrong turn into a wood a bit further up there. I went across some stepping stones, which I'll insert now. You'll see those stepping stones. If you see those stones, you've come the wrong way. It's the narrow stones you need to come over this bridge here. I'm going to grab a cup of tea though. I just want to check out something over the other side of that bridge, because I think we have an exposure of some more rock, a bit of a geology feature, but it's not the red sandstone this time. So we'll have a look at that in a bit. Well, this Geo Park Way is really living up to its name with an assortment of geology. For nearly all of the routes so far, we've seen that red sandstone from the desert times, where we had it in a completely different climate in a completely different part of the world 299 million years ago. These rocks are older. They're not red sandstone, they're actually Carboniferous limestone. And it's because of these and the history of this area, as we work our way down to Hampton Load and onto Highley, that the geology changes its nature. Yet again, it'll be doing that many times over. And as we head south to the city of Gloucester, the rocks will actually get older till they reach their oldest peak on the Malvern Hills. I'm really looking forward to that bit, but we'll have lots of other hills along the way. Anyway, enough of more about rocks. We're going to continue our journey. We're now over the halfway point, heading down to Hampton Load. Now this here isn't a footbridge, it's actually a private road to this water treatment works, which belongs to the South Staffordshire Water Company. I thought last time it was just a footpath for the workers, but it turns out it's a road. We're going to go underneath that road to Hampton Load. Back here by the River Severn, just in there again, but on the opposite side to where we were on the Severn Way, and there's no access across to there. There was once the Hampton Load chain ferry, which sadly closed in 2016 for reasons, well, I can't seem to find out on the internet why it closed in 2016. I think there's probably some maintenance issues with it, and sadly 8 years later it hasn't reopened, although it doesn't say it has officially closed. I think it would be nice if perhaps the Severn Valley Railway at some point, I know they are struggling financially like a lot of the heritage lines, could take that on that, because it would be a good tourist spinner, I think. And there was a campsite over here. Bearing in mind we're in middle of September, it is very, very busy indeed. So this area really attracts people to it because of the beauty of the lovely Severn Valley, and also the lovely villages around here and the towns like Bridgnorth, and where we come to Bewdley, where we'll see next time again. It draws people, which is always a good thing. So maybe that could be reopened at some point. Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on that. If you've ever been on the Hampton Load ferry, I'd love to hear from you as well if you know more information about it. Looking across the other side of the River Severn, and in the middle of the screen now is Hampton Load Station, which, as I said earlier, is misnamed because it's not in Hampton Load. I'm in Hampton Load. That's in the village or hamlet of Hampton, but it would have served both places when the ferry was running, alas no more. But there, looking back, is the Severn Valley. Severn Valley following this way. We're going to climb now though up to the village of Highley. We're making our way to something called the Buttercross, which has an interesting story to tell. Now this is the Buttercross, not the normal sort of Buttercross you would normally expect to see in the heart of the village. What village? Well, Highley, which is just over a mile down that lane, which is where we're heading next. Why is this so far away from the village? Well, the village, unfortunately, in medieval times, 1310s, maybe a little bit later, suffered enormously with the Black Death. Yes, that took out, in fact, wiped out a lot of villages. It took out, in the case of Highley's, 60% of the village's population. And it was here that other villages around, probably including the track that I've just come up from Hampton Load, and perhaps they were brought down boats along the River Severn. Food was put here, deposited on the ground for the villagers, because they didn't want the villagers of Highley coming in contact with villagers from other places in this part of Shropshire in the Severn Valley. So the food was placed here, and the villagers could then come and collect it without contaminating anyone else. So a grim tale here along the Geo Park Way. Well, I've now made it around to the village of Highley, or Highley. I'm not sure which one it's pronounced, so I apologise if I've got that wrong. Delightful village. It reminds me a lot of the villages that are in the Forest of Dean and the western part of the Gloucestershire. In fact, we're on the same sort of coal field here, carboniferous, and lots of coal seams that lie underground here. In fact, coal was mined here for hundreds of years. There was a coal field in a woodland just before I was coming into the village here, but unfortunately it's private access, so I couldn't get into it. It does say on the OS map there are remains in it though. Let's see if I can get a couple of shots of some of the buildings around Highley, because it is, well, has a lot of history of its own, largely coal related, but also it's in a delightful spot here just above the Severn Valley. I'm here with a cup of tea and just a couple of biscuits before I head over to the village of Highley. We'll be crossing over the footbridge through the Severn Valley Country Park, which was once the heart of the coal mining industry, and back in the mid-1980s the land was redeveloped and turned back to nature once more, with trees and grass growing over where there was once coal seam rubble and everything that was taken out of the coal mines to produce the black stuff. Anyway, can we head down there into the Severn Valley Country Park to complete our walk today in the village of Highley. So I'm still in Highley. We follow this delightful track through the heart of the village down into the Severn Valley Country Park. And so this is the Miners' Bridge. This is the first public bridge since we left Bridgnorth over the River Severn, connecting one side to the other. We had that private one used by the water company, didn't we? But this is the only one and the only way of getting across now that ferry is no longer in operation. And there used to be, and I remember telling you this before, if you watch the Severn Way episode through here, there used to be a cable lift over the top of this bridge, or parallel to it, carrying the coal from one side to the other railway, of course, on the opposite side, which is the present day Severn Valley Railway. And that's looking upstream from thence where we came from Bridgnorth this morning. It's now just after lunchtime, about 1:30, so yeah, I seem to have hopefully escaped the rain. So that's it for today, this first part of the Geo Park Way. In the next episode we'll be heading from here at Highley down to Bewdley, but not following the River Severn like we did last time. We'll be heading up to the hills. I think it's called Kinlet, is it? Anyway, it goes over the hills and then it comes round to Bewdley. It's the long way round, effectively, to the town of Bewdley, which is always a delight. I love that town. And then, of course, we'll be heading on south there. And I hope to get up onto the Aberley Hills before Christmas. And then into next year, we'll be heading south across the Malvern Hills, which I'm really looking forward to as well, because I love the Malverns, and also May Hill, which is also on the Geo Park Way, which I've never been up before, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Hope you enjoyed this first part of the Geo Park Way from Bridgnorth to Gloucester. Really enjoyed my walk today. Hope to see you on the channel again very soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Goodbye.